The art of wise action. During the Renaissance, the Pope asked the renowned sculptor Michelangelo, "How did you create such a beautiful statue like David?" Michelangelo replied, "It's simple. I removed everything that wasn't David, and David emerged." Michelangelo's answer contains a valuable lesson. Knowing what not to do often leads to clearer thinking and wiser actions than knowing what to do. In other words, what truly helps us succeed isn't additional wisdom, but rather making fewer mistakes. The art of wise action discusses several common thinking traps we encounter in our daily lives. By avoiding these mental pitfalls, we can make smarter decisions and take more successful actions in both our personal and professional lives. The author, Rolf Dobelli, is a German best-selling writer who holds an MBA and a PhD in economic philosophy. He regularly writes about cognitive biases, helping people think clearly and make better decisions in their personal and professional lives. He has published 7 books, with The Art of Wise Action and The Art of Clear Thinking being his most famous works. These companion pieces have been translated into 13 languages and have gained worldwide popularity. The book focuses on 4 main areas. First, why do we empathize more with specific individuals than with cold statistics? Second, why does someone with a hammer tend to see everything as a nail? Third, why do we unconsciously assume others share our thoughts and perspectives? Fourth, why do we place higher value on things obtained through struggle? Regarding the first question, the author shares an example. In the 1980s, economists conducted a famous experiment called the Ultimatum Game. The rules were simple. I give you $100, and you decide how to split it with a stranger sitting across from you. You can propose any ratio you want, 30%, 50%, or any other percentage. If the stranger accepts your proposed split, you both get to keep the money. However, if they reject it, neither of you gets anything, and the money returns to me. You might think you should give a stranger just a tiny amount, like $1, and keep $99 for yourself. It seems logical since a stranger would prefer having $1 over nothing and would likely agree. However, the experimental results completely contradicted this rational analysis. The vast majority of participants suggested giving the stranger between $30 to $50, and they generally believe that offering less than $30 would be unfair. Why does everyone appear so generous? The author explains this through what's called the theory of mind effect. Since prehistoric times, humans have survived through group living and collective existence. Throughout human evolution, we've developed a keen sensitivity to how others think and feel. The Ultimatum Game experiment perfectly demonstrates this theory of mind effect. When people gather together, participants unconsciously sense the stranger's thoughts. However, with a small modification to the experiment, people become less generous. For instance, when participants are isolated in separate rooms and can't see each other, the suggested distribution typically drops below $20 as the other person becomes more abstract. Consider another example. Psychologist Paul Slovic conducted a donation experiment. He showed one group a photo of a malnourished child from a war-torn African country with pleading eyes. Those who saw this photo donated an average of $2.50. Another group was shown statistics about famine in that African nation, indicating over 3 million malnourished children. Surprisingly, this group donated only $1.70 on average. This result seems counterintuitive since statistics should better reflect the disaster's true scale. However, people found the numbers cold and ineffective, while the specific child's expression and demeanor made hunger feel more immediate and real. This theory of mind effect is constantly at work in daily life. Media outlets understand that charts and numbers don't attract readers. They need specific people or powerful images. For instance, articles about countries feature photos of their leaders, while earthquake coverage includes pictures of victims. How can we use this theory of mind effect to make rational decisions? As an audience member, remain cautious and objective when hearing individual stories. Ask about the underlying facts and statistics. Compelling narratives might lead to irrational decisions and misguided actions. Only background data can provide real context for making informed judgments and avoiding deception. Conversely, if you're tasked with moving or inspiring others, consider leveraging this theory of mind effect by presenting your message through vivid, relatable characters. Why people with hammers see everything as nails. The author shares a simple story. A man obtained a bank loan to start a company. Shortly after, due to poor management, the business failed, and in despair, the man took his own life. While this seems like a straightforward story, what really led to this outcome? Different professionals would analyze it differently. An economist might try to understand why the business model failed, speculating about unfavorable economic conditions or intense market competition. A financial expert might suggest that a bank loan wasn't the right financing tool. A local journalist might suspect hidden troubles, like gambling debts and threats from loan sharks. Clearly, they're all missing the point. As Mark Twain famously said, "To a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail." American investor Charlie Munger coined the term man with a hammer syndrome based on this quote. Munger explains that after years of professional training, people become economists, engineers, marketing managers, investment managers, and so on. Once they're familiar with their field's thinking patterns, they try to apply these patterns to every problem they encounter. A surgeon tends to see surgery as the solution to medical problems. Military personnel often lean toward military solutions for conflicts. Civil engineers instinctively think about construction methods, and teachers might approach interpersonal communications with a lecturing mindset. In essence, when facing a problem, most people's first instinct is to interpret and handle it through their area of expertise. One might ask, isn't this approach valid? After all, everyone has their strengths, and they understand their field better than others. The author argues this is a mental trap we must consciously avoid in decision-making. Experts can easily become trapped in their professional bubble, developing professional bias. The danger lies in constantly trying to apply professional methods to unrelated problems, eventually accepting this as normal. Even within their own field, these hammer-wielders tend to overuse their tools. This tendency intensifies with age, and professional bias can lead to arrogance and blind faith in one's methods. How can we avoid this man with a hammer thinking error? The author suggests that since we're all influenced by professional bias, we should develop additional thinking patterns beyond our expertise. If you're a musician, for instance, try learning about economics. Pay attention to fields where you lack knowledge and understand their approaches. Seemingly unrelated domains can help develop diverse perspectives, broaden your thinking, and prevent professional inertia, arrogance, or blind faith in decision-making. Let me explain the third question. Why do we unconsciously assume others think the same way we do? The author illustrates this with an interesting experiment conducted by Stanford psychologist Lee Ross. He created a large sign with embarrassingly bright text reading, "Welcome to the Fool's Restaurant," and asked college students if they would carry this sign around campus. He also asked them to estimate how many other students would agree to do the same task. The results were fascinating. Those who agreed to carry the sign believed most other students would also agree, saying, "It's just holding a sign, no big deal, everyone would do it." Those who declined believed others would refuse too, stating, "Carrying such a sign would make you look crazy, nobody would want to do that." Notice how both groups were confident in their judgment of others. This cognitive error is known as false consensus bias, our tendency to overestimate how many others share our views and feelings. In other words, we naturally project our own thoughts and feelings onto others. The author points out that this overconfidence appears everywhere in daily life. Many authors, for instance, firmly believe their books will be hugely successful, but readers often have different opinions, and actual sales tell the true story. In politics, there's an interesting observation. Presidential candidates consistently overestimate their potential vote count before actual elections. None have ever underestimated their support. They all tend to predict higher numbers than reality. We often consider those who disagree with us or feel differently as somehow abnormal. In the sign-carrying experiment, those who agreed to carry the sign viewed those who refused as uptight, petty, and humorless. Those who refused viewed the participants as foolish attention seekers. To avoid this cognitive limitation in decision-making, the author suggests, first, avoid overconfidence before important actions. Recognize that others may have entirely different judgment systems. Base decisions on thorough research and consider all stakeholders' needs. Second, during implementation, continuously gather feedback and try to see things from others' perspectives. Be prepared to adjust your approach. Forcing your way might backfire. Finally, Cultivate an inclusive and tolerant mindset. Don't immediately doubt or criticize those with different viewpoints. Show respect and trust instead. This attitude often leads to better cooperation. Now, for the final question, why do we tend to value things more when we've suffered to obtain them? The author shares a story about John, a young man who joined the U.S. Air Force. After enduring long and rigorous training, he finally passed his parachuting qualification to become a real paratrooper. He and his fellow soldiers then lined up to receive their commemorative pins shaped like parachutes from their commanding officer. After a long wait, the commanding officer finally arrived. He walked up to John, pinning the commemorative badge on his chest. But it didn't end there. After pinning it, the officer suddenly struck the badge with a forceful punch. The badge pierced through John's uniform into his chest, causing him to cry out in pain. Strangely enough, John didn't hold any grudge against the officer afterward. Instead, whenever he had the chance, he would unbutton his shirt to show friends the small scar on his chest. Even decades after retiring from the military, John had framed that very badge that had pierced him and hung it on his bedroom wall. This behavior is what researchers call the effort justification phenomenon. What does this mean? When you invest considerable effort into something, even experiencing pain, you tend to value the results more highly and derive greater satisfaction from the achievement. In other words, we tend to artificially inflate or enhance the value of something based on the effort we've already invested in it. Take John's case. Having a scar from a badge was completely unnecessary and even ridiculous. However, his mind adjusted this absurdity, automatically elevating the badge's value from an ordinary object to something sacred. The reason? The badge carried the weight of his hard work and sacrifice. How does this effort justification phenomenon affect our decision-making? In life, many people use this principle to deliberately enhance our perception of value. For instance, many college clubs intentionally put new members through bizarre or challenging initiation tests before allowing them to join. The more unusual or demanding these entrance tests are, the stronger the sense of pride applicants develop, leading to more active participation in club activities afterward. Consider the classic cake mix case from the 1950s in Western markets. A convenient cake mix was introduced that only required adding hot water to make delicious cake batter. Manufacturers thought this convenience would surely be a hit. Surprisingly, housewives didn't like it because making cakes became too simple, leaving them feeling unfulfilled. The manufacturers had to adjust their product. They deliberately modified the instructions to require adding a fresh egg. This simple change restored the housewives' sense of accomplishment, and they became willing to pay for this more complex product. Understanding this phenomenon can guide our actions and decisions. We should consciously maintain clarity and rationally evaluate the true value of things. Before acting, we should pause and consider whether something's value comes from its ability to meet our needs or merely from our reluctance to let go due to previously invested effort. When estimating value, you can strategically lower expectations, making things less easily attainable. This can significantly change how others perceive their worth. This book discusses 4 common thinking patterns that affect our decisions and actions. First, we're naturally more sensitive to specific individuals. Since humans have lived in groups since primitive times, we're inherently attuned to others' feelings when gathered together. However, we struggle to connect emotionally with data and facts, often unconsciously resisting them. This means we must consciously remind ourselves to investigate and value the truth behind the numbers when making important decisions, avoiding emotional traps. Second, through long-term social experiences, we unconsciously develop professional biases. We tend to apply our expertise in one field to solve problems in others, ultimately becoming blindly overconfident. It's crucial to learn about different fields' perspectives, break out of our mental habits, and approach problems comprehensively from multiple angles when making decisions. Third, we unconsciously overestimate our similarities with others. In other words, we project our own thoughts and feelings onto others, assuming they think and feel the same way we do. Before taking action, we must recognize and respect individual differences in perspectives, which helps reduce resistance to our initiatives. Fourth, the effort we invest in something affects our judgment of its value. When we've invested significant energy into something, we tend to artificially inflate its worth. When making decisions and choices, We must return to rationality, carefully evaluate the true significance of things relative to our needs, and remind ourselves to let go when necessary, rather than continuing misguided actions just because of previous investments.